Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Patriot Nation TV. I'm your host, Tim Davis, your New Age Patriot with a 1776 attitude. Just one man, one opinion. Today is Wednesday, May 19th, 2021. In this show, this show is going to be how I explain the crisis in the Middle East. Israel versus Hamas, the New World Order, the Arab world, and yes, Democrats and RHINOS sitting in a faraway capital in D.C., better known as AKA the Swamp, the New World Order globalists. So let me start off by saying this. There's a lot going on in this world. I'm going to go a little off topic what I usually do. So let me just say this to start off with. Dear world, you never defended Jews when they were persecuted and murdered. Today, don't stand in their way when they defend themselves. Don't stand in their way. You did nothing. You never defended them when they were being persecuted and murdered. So don't stand in their way today. So with that being said, Israel versus Hamas, the New World Order, the Arab world, and so on and so on. This is my take, one man, one opinion. And I truly believe this. Turkey and Iran, the UN, and the globalists are behind Israel's crisis today. Ask yourself, why now? Why now? It's simple, actually. Because Trump is gone and no longer in power. And we have a Quisling is in the White House, along with his criminal cohorts, majority of the Democratic Party and RHINOS, and especially the Squad. That's right, the Squad. I'm going to name names. I'm going to say what I got to say. So who is the Squad? First, let's start off by saying the Squad are anti-America. They're anti-Israel. They're anti-liberty. And they're pro-globalists. All of them, there's 6 of them. All of them are under 50 and are the left wing of the Democratic Party. So who are these people I'm mentioning about the Squad? They are Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez from New York, Mondaire Jones from New York, my state, the great state of New Yorkistan, the modern day Sodom and Gomorrah, whichever we want to choose, you can pick the other one. Rashid Tlaib from Michigan, Ilhan Omar from Minnesota, Ayan Presley of Massachusetts, and Cori Bush of Missouri. That's the Squad. That's the power. And like I said earlier, why now? It's because Trump is gone and we have a Quisling in the White House. So just look back a little bit from 2016 to 2020, 2021 January. Remember this, there was no wars. Trump brought peace between the Arabs and the Jews. It's Joe Biden. It's Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, Pelosi, Schumer, and the Democratic gang, which brings war and death. If you know anything about the history of the Middle East, you would know that 600,000 plus Jews were deported from North African nations, such as Morocco, Algeria, so on and so on, When Israel was reformed, many had been there for hundreds of years, and their land and assets were stolen by the Arabs. Also, in case you didn't know, approximately 1 million, 1.5 million Jews were kicked out of Arab-run lands throughout the Middle East, Africa, that they had lived in for thousands of years, while their assets and property were seized and stolen when most of them fled to Israel. Although much is heard of the plight of the Palestinian refugees from the aftermath of the creation of Israel in 1948, 1949. But this is historical. This is facts. So let's get to the crisis that's going on today, that's been going on since the creation of Israel. I'm going to be blunt. I'm going to speak the truth. It's not popular. You won't hear it on mainstream media. You won't hear it on Fox News. You might get parts of dribs and drabs of it. But this is the truth. Let me just take a little sip of my coffee. Sorry. The truth is this. The Palestinians, the majority of the Arab world, want the Jews dead. It's simple as that. Israel wants to exist as a Jewish state and wants to live in peace. Israel recognizes the right of the Palestinians to have their own state and to live in peace. Most Palestinians, and many other Muslims and Arabs for that matter, don't recognize the right of the Jewish state of Israel to exist. For example, in 1947, the UN voted to divide the land called Palestine into a Jewish state and an Arab state. The Jews accepted the UN resolution, but no other Arab or Muslim nation accepted it. On May 14th, 1948, the day the British rule ended and Israel became a nation, the armies of all neighboring Arab states, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Transjordan, Egypt, attacked Israel. They attacked them. On its first day of existence, in order to destroy it, Israel survived. Simple facts. If Israel laid down their arms, they would be destroyed. If Hamas laid down their arms, there would be peace. There has never been a state in the geographic area known as Palestine. Never. There was never a state known as Palestine that was not Jewish. Israel is the third Jewish state to exist in that region. There was never an Arab state and never a Palestinian state in this region. There was never a Muslim state or any other state, only a Jewish state. In fact, I'm going to say from 1948 to 1967, the West Bank, Eastern Jerusalem, and Gaza were all in Arab hands. Yet the Arabs chose not to declare Palestine or Palestinian state, a Palestinian state. Palestinians have never had a sovereign state of their own. The Ottoman Empire, the Ottoman Turkey, could have allowed them to govern themselves, but it never happened. Egypt could have allowed them to govern themselves. Others could have allowed this, but it never happened. Today, Israel occupies 0.4% of the Middle East, while Arab nations occupy 99.6%. 99.6%. There are 22 states in the Arab world and one Jewish state. Yet, much of the world has been manipulated to believe Israel is occupying Arab land. Incidentally, 20% of Israel's population today is Arab. So Hamas, their motto is this: we love death so much as the Jews love life. Hamas is formally designated as a terrorist organization by the European Union and the USA. They, like their sister terrorist organization Hezbollah, are funded by Iran and recently funded by the United States of America, led by the Democratic Party. Their charter is to annihilate the Jews, destroy Israel, and replace this with a radical Islamist regimen. Their goal is simple: genocide. That's their goal. Simple. Genocide. As reflected by their numerous attacks on Israeli citizens, they indoctrinate their children at an early age in schools, teaching them to hate Jews and Christians such as myself. But we're going to stick to the Jewish people at this point. Palestinian school curricula is based on the glorification of terrorists, the demonization of Jews, and the message that Israel should cease to exist. Hamas rewards the families of terrorists, aka martyrs, whatever you want to call them, in the form of monetary awards when family members blow themselves up and kill Jews. Hamas uses its citizens as human shields. Hamas stores its munitions and military weaponry in civilian locations such as schools, hospitals, and mosques, thus putting civilians in danger. Pursuant to international law, when Hamas places military assets inside such buildings, said buildings become military targets. Hamas works this into their propaganda, spreading lies that Israel, in its effort to eliminate terrorists, is targeting innocent civilians. And America's media is playing along. The New World Order globalists are playing along. So with that being said, here's some recent history. Here's some recent history that you will not hear on documentaries, History Channel. You won't get in college universities. You won't hear mainstream media talk about it, but here's some recent history. These are facts. The British had taken this land from the Ottoman Turks who ruled there for centuries after World War I. During World War I, the British issued, I believe it's called the Balfour Declaration, favoring a home for the Jewish people in Palestine. In 1937, the Peel Commission two-state proposal, rejected by Palestinians, who then allied with the Nazis and mounted a terrorism campaign mounted against the Jewish people. From 1933 to 1944, the Holocaust begins. Holocaust really, that was the beginning of it, but the Holocaust really began with the final solution, probably 1939, 1940. But that's when the Holocaust begins. European Jews were annexed to a mandatory Palestine. And beginning in 1941 through 1945, were systematically transported to concentration camps, where over 6 million Jews, approximately 1/3 of the world's Jewish population, were murdered. They were murdered. Hence, the extreme importance of a Jewish state and a safe place for Jews to live. In 1947, the UN recommended the UNSCOP, UNSCOP, partition plan, a two-state solution. The Jews accepted it. The Palestinians rejected it and started a war against Israel. The 1948 Arab-Israeli War of Independence, which lasted until 1949. The Arab coalition of Egypt, Iraq, Transjordan, Syria, Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, which was called the Holy War or the Holy War Army, and ALA, failed to defeat Israel. And this coalition and Israel signed the 1949 armistice agreements, which established a green line between Israel and its neighbors. Syria, Egypt, and Jordan, they established the green line. That brings us to the 1950s, 1960s. The 1950s and 1960s saw a constant insurgence of the Fedayeen attacks carried out against Israel by guerrilla terrorists in Syria, Egypt, and Jordan, Saudi Arabia. Israel fought back hard. In 1956, along with Britain and France, attacked Egypt after Egypt nationalized the Suez Canal. Israel withdrew from Sinai, however, was successful in pacifying its southern border. In 1967, Egypt, Jordan, and Syria, with the help of Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Algeria, and Kuwait, attacked Israel in the Six-Day War. Israel defeated these Arab coalition forces and as a direct result expanded its territory to include the West Bank with East Jerusalem, the Golan Heights, Sinai, and Gaza. In 1967-1970, Egypt announced its plan to destroy Israel. And other countries, including Syria, Jordan, the PLO, the USSR, mounted its forces at Israel's border in preparation to attack Israel in the west of attrition. Israel preempted their attack and took out Egyptian and Lebanese forces and equipment and pleaded with Jordan not to attack Israel. Jordan went ahead and attacked Israel and proceeded to beat Jordan and take control of Jordanian land in the West Bank. Next, the Arab states went to Sudan and announced their three no's plan for Israel, which included no recognition of this Jewish state of Israel, no peace for Jews in Israel, and no negotiations with Israel. In 1973, I was 3 years old, 1973, Arab states led by Egypt and Syria, including Iraq, Jordan, Algeria, Morocco, Saudi Arabia, as well as Cuba and North Korea, attacked Israel in the Yom Kippur War in an attempt to recapture the territories they lost to Israel in the Six-Day War in 1967. They actually waged a surprise attack during the Jewish high holy holiday of Yom Kippur. Israel defeated this Arab coalition and retained all territory. This brings us to 1971 to 1982. The PLO relocated from Jordan to South Lebanon with the help of Syria. Jamul and Amal attacked Israel in 1982 war, including an assassination attempt of Israel's ambassador to the UK. Israel won, expelled the PLO from Lebanon, and created an Israeli security zone in South Lebanon on the border. In 1978, Egypt signed a peace agreement with Israel, and in return for peace, Israel gave the entire Sinai Peninsula back to Egypt. Israel has always been willing to do the same swap of land for peace with the Palestinians. But the Palestinians have always rejected this. We go from 1985 to 2000. Hezbollah emerged. Leading terrorist of the Lebanese Muslim guerrillas, along with Amal and Jamul, to attack Jews within the security zone. 1987, 1993, the first Intifada, the first large-scale Palestinian uprising by Hamas and the UNLU against Israel in the West Bank and Gaza Strip started. In 2000, Israel, along with the U.S., proposed by the Clinton and the Clinton parameters a two-state accord to the Palestinians, including a sovereign state with over 95% of the land in the West Bank, as well as all of Gaza. The Palestinians rejected it and mounted a suicide bombing terrorist campaign against Jews. You know, a long time ago, I used to consult with Wikipedia and Google to reference the numbers of civilian Israelis murdered by said terrorists. But unfortunately, however, Wikipedia has removed this data, along with other things. So that brings me to 2000 to 2005. The second Palestinian uprising, called Al-Aqsa Intifada, with Hamas and the PA attacking Israel. 2005, Israel unilaterally withdrew its forces and settlers from Gaza, giving local residents their first chance in history to govern themselves. 2006, Hezbollah kidnapped 2 Israeli reserve soldiers, and Israel ran a military operation against Hezbollah in 2006, Lebanon War. The UN and the globalists, New World Order, intervened to broker a ceasefire, after which Israel lifted its naval blockade of Lebanon. 2006, Hezbollah kidnapped 2 Israeli reserve soldiers, and Israel ran a military operation against Hezbollah, which led to the Lebanon War. 2007 brings us up to date with 2007. The Palestinian Authority was violently ousted by Hamas, who then took control. And here lies the modern day root of the persecution of the Palestinians by Hamas. 2008-2009, Hamas initiated an ongoing rocket fire into Israel from Gaza in the Gaza War. 2012, Israel responded to Hamas uprisings on the Gaza Strip. 2014, Hamas initiated terrorism and repeated rocket attacks against Israel as a response to the collapse of U.S.-sponsored peace talks. And that brings us to where we are today. 2016 to 2020, we didn't hear a peep, not a beep, 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 not a bleep from the Arab world, the Palestinians, Hamas, because America actually had America First policy, which stood 100% behind Israel, which us Christians must stand with our brethren in Israel, because we are one. Me, one man, one opinion, as a Christian, a blood-bought child of Christ, I support Israel. I support the defense of what they believe in. And I will back you 100%, because this is a path that's leading into America, as we witness today. Nazi Germany, 1937-38, is happening right here today in America. That's for another show. So let me just start off by saying this. We support you. I'm asking all you Christians out there, you real Christians, not your fake Christians, who know the truth, who know what's going on. We must stand united with our brethren in Israel. We must support the Jewish people. We must support the Jewish fight and the Jewish cause. They are our brethren. Doesn't matter if you're Republican, Democrat, liberal, conservative. Doesn't matter. These are our brethren. If you're a true Christian, if you're a true Jew, we need to unite now. And I'm going to say this. When you have the Muslim Brotherhood cheering on and supporting the squad, and the squad doesn't denounce them or denounce their message, that goes to show you the squad is on the wrong side of history. Also remember this. It didn't start with gas chambers. It started with one party controlling the media. One party controlling the message. One party deciding what is truth. One party censoring speech and silencing opposition. One party dividing citizens into us and them, whether it's by religion or color or your skin, and calling on their supporters to harass them. It started when good people turned a blind eye and let it happen. Me, one man, one opinion. I'm not going to turn a blind eye. I am not going to let it happen. I know where it's leading to. I'm not going to proselytize and tell you what I believe. I can only just tell you, Christians, we need to wake up. Support our brothers and sisters in Israel. Support God's land. It is God's chosen land. So what I'm asking you is this. Don't believe what I post. Don't believe what I say. Just research what I post. Research what I say. And from there, you will find your answers. So this is my post for today, Wednesday, May 19th, 2021. From Patriot Nation TV, I'm your host, Tim Davis, a.k.a. Professor X, one man, one opinion. I hope you enjoyed this little broadcast. And if you're new to it and you see it for the first time, please hit subscribe, hit like. If you're a follower, hit like, leave a comment. I'm still being shadow banned. I figured it all out. I know how they did it. And so I guess I'm going to sign out, guys. I hope this was informative. I hope we can unite. So I'm going to sign out. I'm going to say, as I always do, God bless you, God bless America, and I talk to you soon. God bless Israel. We have your back. Peace out. Goodbye.